She did not win while she was alive. That is the truth that the mythology of Diana, the flowers, the candles, the rivers of grief that swept across Britain in the first days of September 1997, sometimes obscures. Diana did not win in her lifetime. She fought the palace, and the palace outmaneuvered her at every turn. It stripped her title, reduced her security, managed the narrative, isolated her allies, built the rehabilitation of the woman whose affair had destroyed her marriage, minimized her legacy, stored her portrait, controlled the record. And then she died, at 36 years old, in a tunnel in Paris, with so much unfinished, so much unanswered for, so much that the palace was counting on time to bury. They were wrong about the time. They were wrong about the burial. And they were catastrophically, completely, irreversibly wrong about one thing above all others. They forgot about her son. This is the complete story of how Diana won, not in her lifetime, but completely, permanently, and finally. Let me take you back to the beginning, not the fairy tale beginning, the real one. Diana Frances Spencer was 19 years old when she became engaged to the Prince of Wales. 19, before she had fully formed, before she had the experience, the confidence, the resilience, the armor that the institution she was entering was going to require. She walked into the most powerful royal institution in the world as a go, and the institution, in the way of institutions, proceeded to manage her, to shape her, to contain her, to tell her in 1,000 different, formal and informal and invisible ways, what she could be, what she could not, where the lines were, what happened when you crossed them. Diana crossed them, because Diana, despite everything, despite the youth and the isolation, and the institution pressing down on her from every direction, was not manageable, not in the end, not fully. She felt too much. She loved too much. She connected with people in ways that bypassed protocol entirely, that went straight to the human, the real, the aching, impossible to choreograph quality of two people in the same room together, both of them simply present, and she refused to let the institution perform the surgery required to remove that quality from her. The price she paid was enormous, but she paid it, and kept going. The palace campaign against Diana was never announced. That is not how these things work. It moved through the channels that institutions have always used to manage the people inside them who become inconvenient. The isolation, the palace's management of Diana's access to support the mental health resources denied, the advisors discouraged, the friends and staff cycled through and moved on, created around her a particular kind of aloneness, not the dramatic aloneness of someone banished and publicly excluded, the quieter, more devastating kind, the aloneness of someone still physically inside the institution, still attending the events, still wearing the clothes, still performing the role, while the support that should have surrounded her quietly, systematically, disappeared. The narrative management. Every time Diana found a way to tell the truth, the panorama interview, the Squidgygate tapes, the conversations with trusted journalists, the palace found a way to respond, to reframe, to contextualize, to place sympathetic counter-stories in the right publications, at the right moments. The title, stripped in 1996, in the divorce settlement, in the formal, legal, institutionally endorsed language of the dissolution of a marriage that the institution had decided was too complicated to continue managing. The HRH gone, the formal acknowledgement of belonging taken, while she was still alive, while she was still doing the work. The landmines campaign, the hospital visits, the charity appearances that the public understood and loved and responded to in ways the palace could neither replicate nor control. They took her title and hoped the work would be forgotten. They were wrong about that too. Diana died on August 31, 1997. The world responded in ways that the palace had not anticipated and could not contain. Flowers, millions of them, outside every royal residence, in public spaces, on street corners, in the hands of people who had never met her, but felt, in some specific, personal, impossible to explain way, that they had lost someone who had made them feel less alone, more seen, more connected to something larger than their own lives. The grief was real, the love was real, and the powers, which had spent years working to diminish Diana's place in the institutional story, watched, in those first days of September 1997, as the public demonstrated something the palace had always known, but had chosen to underestimate: that Diana was not theirs to manage. She never had been. She belonged to the people, and the people do not forget. Not in 30 years, not in the age of the internet, where her image, her words, her recorded conversations, her charity work, her dignity, in the face of everything, are more accessible now than they ever were in her lifetime. Diana's presence has not diminished. With time, it has intensified, because the story did not end in that Paris tunnel. It continued in two boys who were 15 and 12, and who would grow up carrying her into a world she never lived to see. William Arthur Philip Louis has spent his entire adult life doing one thing above all others: refusing to let his mother be forgotten, not loudly, not through interviews or memoirs or the kind of public, emotional expression that Harry has chosen and that has both revealed and cost him so much. Through action. The ring on Catherine's hand, Diana's engagement ring, placed there by William deliberately, visibly, impossibly, tells everyone who looks at it exactly who William is carrying forward. The portrait on the Hall of Matriarchs wall, the estate that bears his name, the decree signed by 3 and not 4, the confrontation in the sitting room, the public snub at the royal event, the ultimatum, leave or face the truth, the Balmoral exclusion, the banquet where he ejected Camilla's grandson with no hesitation, the tiara he protected, the archives he secured, the final move of Camilla's that he watched backfire completely, the moment he closed the door on the acknowledgement that was never going to come, the 7 words to Tom Parker Bowles. Every single one of these was Diana. Not Diana as mythology, not Diana as the people's princess of the flowers and the candles. Diana as a mother, who sat with her son, who told him the truth, who gave him the emotional tools to carry that truth without being broken, who preserved the record, who prepared him, deliberately, lovingly, specifically, for exactly this. Let me count the ways. Her portrait hangs in Windsor Castle, beside Queen Elizabeth, in the most prestigious corridor of the most historic royal residence in Britain, put there by her son, maintained there by his authority, permanent. Her title, Her Royal Highness, will be restored in the first hours of William's reign, before the coronation, before anything else. This first, her ring is on the hand of the future Queen of England, worn every day, in every public appearance. Impossible to miss, impossible to ignore. Her values are in her son, in the way he parents, in the work he does, in the monarchy he is building, one that looks, in every meaningful way, far more like the institution Diana always believed it could be, than the one that broke her. Her truth is preserved, in letters and recordings, and sealed journals, and the testimony of the people who were there, and could not stay silent. Her grandchildren, George, Charlotte, Louis, carry her forward into a future she never lived to see. George will be king one day, Diana's grandson, on the throne, carrying her name, her blood, her values, into a century she died before she could enter, and Camilla, who spent 30 years in direct competition with Diana's memory, who wore the crown, who received the formal salute of the British state, who was, by every external measure, the winner of the thing that had been contested since before Diana died, is becoming a footnote, formally, institutionally, in the permanent, irreversible language of a record that belongs to her son. Diana once said something that those who knew her best remember as one of the most defining things she ever expressed. She said she did not want to be remembered as a saint. She was too human for that, too imperfect, too complicated, too much of everything that saints are not supposed to be. She wanted to be remembered as someone who had tried, who had used the impossible, extraordinary universe of one, the platform of her life, to make the people in front of her feel less alone, less unseen, less unvalued, less like their suffering was invisible to the people, with the power to acknowledge it. She wanted that to be her legacy. And here is what I believe. After 40 episodes of North Wire, after months of following this story, with the specificity and the care that Diana's truth deserves. After watching her son move, with the patience and the precision, and the love of a man who has never, not for a single day of his adult life, stopped carrying her, I believe Diana got what she wanted. Not a saint, something better. A truth that survived. A record that could not be buried. A son who used everything she gave him to ensure that the palace could not write its own version of who she was. Diana won. Not loudly. Not in the dramatic, press conference, headline-generating way of someone announcing a victory. In the quiet, permanent, impossible to reverse way of truth finally arriving where it has always been heading, in a portrait on a wall, in a restored title, in a ring that is worn every day by the woman who will be queen, in 3 grandchildren who will carry her forward, in a son who closed the door on the acknowledgement that was never going to come, and kept going. For her, Diana won. It always ends with Diana. And it always will. Drop a comment. In your view, what is the single most powerful thing Diana left behind? This community has been on this journey with Northwire from the beginning, and we are not done yet. New video tomorrow. Same time. See you then.